Welcome to another program of the Hakimian Show. I'm here today with Vensen Ambeau, and you shared a little bit about your greatest joy in pastoring, and of course it was sweetness to my ears, because whenever I hear about the active, intentional role of pastors to disciple, being faithful, obviously we need to be concerned about marketing, communications, and administration and all those things, right?
Right.
But when those things become primary, which they can easily slide into because they're easier to deploy.
Yeah.
Discipling people is difficult because people are they're the uncontrollable variable.
Yeah.
Where marketing, you can control that, right?
Yeah.
Communications, you can control that.
Yeah.
Advertising, you can control that. Yeah. Administration, and I know for me, I love administration and web design and all those things because it's sort of like that one thing I can control.
Yeah.
I can control the outcomes.
Yeah.
But pastoring for over 20 years, you realize, man, like we have no control. Paul said one plants, another one waters, but God makes people grow. And that's an aspect of discipleship too, is that we're not really making them grow. We're just cooperating, facilitating with God. Yeah. And so that's awesome. But I know there's difficulties. What have been some of the difficulties with you? And again, right now, I'm really just getting into the heart of a pastor,
gotcha.
right?
Okay.
So I want to get into your heart. What have been some of the difficulties that you've experienced that can be a benefit to even other pastors, and especially pastors who are new to South Florida and
Matt, I'd have to say that the challenge has been the people that you're working with. I think for me, being green when I first accepted my call to ministry, you assume that church folk are gonna be, they're filled with the Holy Spirit. They got the love of God, and you feel like you feel like they're gonna be, wow, we're gonna work at this together. We're gonna go and save souls. But then what you find out along the years, what I found out, the reality is that many of them, while attend church, don't necessarily feel and experience Christ in a meaningful and impactful way in their lives.
Wow.
I think a lot of us, a lot of church folk have, if you ask them, do they believe? Yeah, they'll give you the answer that they believe in Christ, they believe in Jesus. But I think the work where you recognize that God isn't just this one moment, this one day thing, right? This one moment, one day experience, but rather God is about this life transformation. And I believe that's really at the core at what my calling is about. It's because I felt this life transformative thing. And interestingly enough, man, when I first got saved, when I first recommitted my life to Christ, I thought, hey, okay, now I got my seat locked up in heaven. I'm good. Now I don't need to come back to church. And it wasn't until on that same day someone grabbed me and said, hey, man, I need to see you right after service. And the moment he linked up with me, he said, okay, now I need you back here on Wednesday. And then he said, okay, now I need you back here on Friday. All the while, what he was setting me up for. So, man, mind you, I'm coming from a guy who had never been to church. Who had been to church when he was younger, but then had stopped for some time, right? So I'm coming from not being at church for some time to a guy who was now in a Bible study, in service, in a men's fellowship. And I'm a college student, right? So, for us college students, there's a lot more other things that are more important for us. But I'm connected with Christ at least 3 times a week. And then we had our own personal thing. And that was life transformative for me. That was the moment where I realized that Christ has a saying, has authority over my life. It wasn't just this one day thing. And even where to the point that there are many things that I know that I was dealing with that I had to transform, that I had to get rid of, that I had to change. And because of that, I realized that God really wanted to do a greater thing with, in people's lives. And so some of the challenge has been to really inspire and encourage people to see that. And I think that's really where the discipleship part comes in, because I think church has become this. Okay, we're going to the next thing. We're going to the next thing. It's just kind of let's hurry through the service. Let's hurry through the program. Discipleship forces us to slow down.
Wow.
And we get impatient. Because it's this timely process. And in this timely process, we're gonna deal with some stuff that we hadn't had to deal with before, right? And one of the things,
people's character,
a whole bunch of stuff, And people we find,
which is a sign of a true spiritual father,
right?
right? You're not really fathering people if you're not intimate with them. Jesus said, I know my sheep.
Yeah.
He preached to crowds, but he poured into his core.
Yeah.
And he stood firm on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I think we confuse. We put our emphasis on the crowds and don't pour into the core.
Right.
Where Jesus didn't really put much emphasis on crowds. He says he didn't trust them.
No.
He would constantly challenge them.
Yeah.
Most New Testament scholars will say that it seems like every 6 to 9 months, Jesus gave that confrontational sermon, homily, right?
Yeah.
That almost repelled people. It's counterintuitive. Like he gave those sermons that's like, unless you drink my blood and eat my flesh, talking about if you don't pick up your cross and follow me. And then the question is always, well, why did he do that?
Yeah.
From a church growth expertise perspective,
right.
You don't give that sermon every 6 to 9 months that says, hey, pick up your cross and follow me, and talk about the dangers and the struggles of being a Christian life in such a way that people want to walk away.
Right.
Yeah. And, so what that tells me is that he had such a high emphasis on loyalty, dedication, relationship with him and with each other, and fostering these kind of communities, even as he demonstrated the love of God and talked about the kingdom and gave people parables as much as they can understand, and was trying his best to really demonstrate his messiahship.
I wonder also if that was his way of knowing who the Father sent to him to disciple, right? Because oftentimes he would say, especially in John, right? Father, I have kept the ones in which you have sent to me. Yeah. And I wonder if those challenges that he put out there was in some ways kind of, weeding folk out so he could know really who is it the ones that you've sent to me. You know what I mean? I wonder for us also if we could take that seriously and placing that challenge out there to realize who's the one that God has sent to me to really shepherd and pour into those individuals. I've oftentimes spun my wheels in circle just pouring into people who really haven't done anything to prove themselves whatsoever. Haven't done anything to prove themselves in terms of they're committed for the long haul, that they buy into the vision. I mean, you get people who want to assist and support the ministry, and people who I think are attracted to what they see in terms of what God is doing through me. But there have been some other things that, how far are you willing to go with me?
Yeah, and there's always that moment, right, with every church member that wants to serve, wants to be part of the elite commando team.
Yeah.
Where you begin to challenge or you deal with something specific. It's that Kyrios moment where there's tension, there's disagreement. And if they walk away from it, and they walk away from you, right? This is I think why Paul said, let deacons first be tested before they become overseers. If they can't deal with the consistency and the difficulty and the tension of being an elder. Yeah. Elders are wise men who sit at the gates and make decisions and debate and discuss very difficult matters that deal with family, city, church, any community, whether it's 10 people or 200 people or 2,000, is hard to manage and watch. So there's always that test, and I used to look at that as really negative, right? That moment that you have, and maybe 2/3 of the people walk away.
Right.
They're like, wait, hold up here. I signed up to go to a church and to be under a pastor where I always feel good.
Yeah.
And they make me feel good.
Yeah.
And there's no, very few people are thinking, I can't wait for the day that he holds me accountable or critiques me or rebukes me. But yet there's so much emphasis on rebuking and correcting in Paul's training of Timothy as it relates to him overseeing these house churches in Ephesus.
Right.
So I think what you said is right on, like in a sense that it is that tension that is probably the most difficult in ministry.
Yeah. But it's also the most rewarding.
Yeah.
Because you
get through it.
Yeah, when you get through it, right? When you press your way through, it could be the most rewarding. I mean, just the people who you then find out are really in with you, and even kind of my own personal testimony. Even kind of now my own personal development and growth, because this is uncharted territory for me. Yeah. Right. And to be able to break through that, granted there may be some casualties, But to be able to break through that and see who comes out of there with me, I think I think my ministry and my faith more than anything, ministries, but my faith in trusting in what God says to me, I believe will go to that other level that I have yet to reach. Right.
Yeah. And I think Joshua and Caleb were like that.
Yeah.
For Moses.
Yeah.
Aaron, sometimes his brother would start tripping.
Yeah.
God would deal with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't do anything great without some warriors next to you that can embrace your frailty, your idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
We all have them, but they still love you and they're committed to the mission with you. Well, I appreciate this. We're going to come right back with some more questions.